Hello, we are going to do an energizing hip sequence today, and let's just start by warming up a little bit, coming up onto the toes, bring the heels down, and then interlacing the fingers, taking the hands up towards the ceiling or sky, and then circling out to the sides. So in the sequence that we're building up to, I'll be giving lots of modifications to suit you. All right, and then hands onto the hips. Bring your balance into your right foot, and we're going to circle the knee, little circles to begin with. And then making a bigger circle if that feels comfortable. You can always hold onto a chair or a wall. And you'll see behind me I've got a chair ready. I've got a pile of blocks ready for the sequence we're going to do. Let's change direction. And swapping over, shifting the weight across, bring the knee up. Again, start with little circles to check out how it feels in the hip. If it's feeling okay, making a bigger circle. Changing direction. And bring the foot back down. Let's shift the weight again into the right foot. Going to bring the left knee in front, so about hip height. And then keeping the upper body facing forwards, let's open out to the side and return. So we're trying not to swing everything around, but keep facing forwards. Just the leg coming out to the side as far as you comfortably can. And again, you can hold on to a chair or a wall. And then we'll swap to the other side, shift the weight across. So try and have the knee at hip height. Take your time. You can focus your eyes off the screen if that's easier, on something that's not moving. One more time. Lovely. And then let's step the feet a little bit wider than hip width apart. Going to reach up through the right arm. Let's come over to the side, feeling that stretch. And then have a look down at the floor in front of your left foot. So you're turning a little bit down towards the floor. And then we're going to look up towards the ceiling or sky. So bring the torso with the head, stretching a little bit more into the obliques. And then bringing that top arm down to come out. Let's do the same on the other side. So we're going to reach up through the left arm, coming over the head. And then looking down at the floor. And we're turning the chest as well a little towards the floor. Pausing there for a moment. And then we're going to turn the head and torso together rather than just the neck turning. Looking upwards, keep that top arm stretched over the head, nice and straight. And then bring the top arm down to come out of it. Let's step the feet a little bit closer in again. Some circles. So start small. And then you can always make it a much bigger circle, pushing back, pushing the hips forwards if that feels okay for your lower back. And changing direction. So this could be a really lovely routine to do in the morning when you wake up, get moving, or perhaps you've been working at a desk and been still for a long time. So energizing sequence. Let's come back to the center. We're going to do a little figure of 8, so circling out over each foot. Let the rest of the body respond to that movement. And then at some point change direction, figure of 8 the other way, circling around the feet. Okay, so we're going to turn sideways so that you're facing along to the short end of the mat. Let's take your left foot forwards first of all, and your right foot stepping behind. So have as wide a distance as you feel comfortable with. You want the front knee bent, and then the back heel is on the ground. So let's have the hands onto the hips. And again, it will help to choose a new focal point, something that's still in front of you. And we're going to lift up onto the back toes and then bring the heel to the floor again. And if you'll find you're wobbling all over the place, it might be that you just need to take the feet wider from side to side rather than being too close one behind the other. Try and keep the shoulders over the hips rather than leaning forwards. One more of those, and then we're going to keep the bend in the front knee. We're also going to put a bend in the back knee, and you might just do a couple of centimetres down, doesn't have to be any further than that, or you can go further. Obviously that's going to be harder work. And again, if you're finding that you're wobbling side to side, you might need to take the feet a bit wider on the mat. Let's do 2 more of those. Brilliant. So little steps, bring the feet back together. We're going to do the same on the other side. So right foot forwards, left foot back. I've got my right toes pointing directly forwards, left foot turned out a little bit of a gap between the feet. So bending into the front knee. Let's come up onto the back toes and then bring the heel down. So it should feel okay in the lower back. If it doesn't, you might need to bring the feet in a little bit. So really warming up the feet here. And then let's put a bend in the back knee. Check you've still got the bend in the front knee though. Little dip or lower down. Good stretch out for that back foot as well. Breathing in and out, try not to hold your breath. Let's do 1 more of those. And then little steps, bring the feet back together. Let's face forwards. So taking the feet wide and hip width apart, we're going to turn the feet out, hands onto the hips, and we're going to come into some squats. So we're going to sit back, up to you how far down you go. So might be a little bit, might be more, big push through the feet to come up. So hinge back first, then bend into the knees. We're leaning a little bit forwards. Let me show you from the side, you don't need to turn. So we're really leaning forwards. And let's use the arms as well, reaching up in front. If that's too much, keep the hands on the hips. Brilliant. Okay, so we're going to go to our sequence, and we're going to start it first of all with a chair. So make sure that the chair legs are slightly onto your mat, because we're going to bring our foot onto the floor next to it, and our knees. We need a bit of padding. So we're going to start sitting on the chair, and as I say, I'm going to give you some other variations so you can work a bit more deeply into the sequence if it suits you. So knees wider than the hips, feet are turned out. Let's just take a couple of breaths here. Big breath in through the nose and out through the nose. Okay, so this is our starting position for the sequence. We're then going to swivel on the chair. So I'm going to turn to the left, and I've got my left knee pointing directly to the side, and then my right knee is dropped. So depending on the height of the chair, the knee may or may not touch the ground. From here, we're going to bring hands onto the hips and stand up, and then bow forwards. And we return to standing up. We're going to sit sideways, side saddle on the chair, and then turn back. So I don't have a cushion on my chair, so it's easy to swivel side to side. So let's turn the other way. My right knee's turning all the way to the right, letting my left knee drop down, and then pushing into the feet to stand up. If you feel more stable, you can always step that back foot in a little bit so the heel's down, and then hinging forwards as far as you can, and then sitting back down onto the chair, side saddle, and then turning the other way. Let's do that again. So turning to the left, so I've just got one buttock on the chair, then pushing into the feet, standing up, bowing forwards, and then sitting back onto the chair, swiveling to face forwards. Let's go the other way. Just pause for a moment, get that stretch into the leg, pushing into the feet. And as you bow forwards, look directly down at the ground rather than letting your head completely drop. Coming back up and turning forwards. Oh, sorry. So you can do it that way, straight up into the squat, or sitting back onto the chair and then turning. So you might stick with the chair. That might feel enough for the hips this morning, or whenever you're doing this. Or we're going to use a stack of blocks, or what also can work really well is one of those little footstools that children stand on to wash their hands, or if you've got a footstool that goes with a sofa, that can be the right height as well. So again, just check knees are wider than the hips. We're going to swivel to the side, hands onto the hips. So tuck the back toes under so you can push up, going to hinge forwards, looking directly at the ground, coming back up, bending the knees so we can sit all the way back down, and then face forwards into our squat. Let's turn to the right, dropping the knee down, keep the back toe tucked under, leaning forwards a little bit so it's easier to push up, bowing forwards. Let's come back up. That's it. Drop down. So we're still facing forwards as you drop into the lunge, and lift the knee so that you can open back into the squats. Let's do that again. Turning to the left, drop the knee down. Push into the feet, standing up. Bowing forwards, look directly at the ground. Coming back up. Let's bend the knee. Sitting back, lifting the knee so you can swivel to face forwards. Let's go the other way. Dropping the knee. So take a moment to directly face sideways before you then come up. Bowing. Drop the knee. Lift the knee so you can swivel. So you can stay with the chair still, or you can stay with these. Or there's another option, which is to do it without them. And we're also going to add an option for the arms as we come forward. So if you're sitting on the chair, you can also add that in this time. So having the feet wide enough, you might be able to take the elbows on the inside. But remember, there is nothing wrong with sitting on the chair, sitting on the blocks. You do not have to come down to this version if it doesn't suit your hips today. So let's turn to the side, pause for a moment, check everything's aligned, and then standing up. So either hands can be on the hips like we've done already, or you can reach up with the arms and reach out in front to load the back muscles a bit more. Breathing in to come up, hands back to the hips, lowering down. Lift that knee, sit back down. You could also have something just under the heels if it's not possible to completely flatten the feet. Let's turn the other way. So pause for a moment, facing forwards, hands onto the hips, push up into standing. Hands can stay on the hips or taking the arms up, hinging forward. So now the legs are straight. You're going to reach back up, hands onto the hips, bending both knees, coming down, lifting the left knee so you can sit back in to the squat. We're going to do it one more time. So turning to the left, hands onto the hips. Make sure the feet are placed so you can come up with stability. Maybe hands stay on the hips or reaching forwards. Breathing in, come back up. Breathing out, knee to the floor. I'm going to lift that right knee, settle into the squat. Let's go the other way. Make sure the feet are placed. Coming back up. Hands on the hips or raising the arms. Hinging forwards. Breathing in to come up. Let's breathe out, coming down. Last time, coming back to that squat. Well done. So from here, if you're all the way down in the squat, just bring the hands down, knees to the floor. We're going to change direction. And we're going to come into a downward dog. You can also do this with the chair. I'll just show you that in a moment. So if you're coming from the floor, line up the middle fingers so they're parallel. I'm going to tuck the toes under, lift the knees, work first on the hips, moving back away from the hands, head heavy, looking back between the legs rather than down at the floor. And you can start to pedal, bending one knee and the other knee. If you're using the chair, if you use that for the sequence all the way through, then you might want to stay with that. You can have the hands on the chair seat, walk the feet back until they're underneath the hips. And it's nice to have a stretch there for a moment, and then you can also do that pedaling, bending one knee, bending the other knee, walking on the spot. So after the hip movements we've been making, it's just nice to give the legs a bit of a stretch out. And you might also want to stay still, both heels down or coming up high onto the toes, whether you're in the normal downward dog version, hands on the floor, or on the chair, and then sinking the heels towards the floor. Let's do that a couple more times, coming up onto the balls of the feet, onto the toes, lifting the hips high. Bring the heels down. One more time. Lovely. And then let's just take a moment to stand in Tadasana. So feet hip width apart, have a look down, see whether the feet are parallel. Actively reach down towards the floor with the fingertips, and you can either choose something to gaze at in front of you or slightly down towards the floor, or let your eyes close. But think of standing tall as if there's a ribbon running along your spine up through the crown of the head, helping to stand tall. Shoulders are back, feeling the feet on the floor, rooting down through the ground. Let's take 3 breaths to finish. Big breath in. And long breath out. Try and do it through the nose if the nose is unblocked. Breathing in and out. So an active mountain pose, Tadasana, last breath. Thank you for joining me. Remember to follow so you find the next video that comes up, and leaving a comment always is lovely to see. Thank you for joining me.